Hey everybody, Dustin DePirac here. It is Scoop Talk. It's the return. We're back. It's football season. Things done changed slightly since last we came to speak to you. First off, we've got Andy Graham back, and this is our new guy, Ryan Cartier. I think I've got his name right. This is the replacement for the great Hugh Kellenberger. Hugh obviously is not with the Herald Times anymore. He's in Mississippi. Hugh, we miss you. First off, anyway, so this did not start the way that Indiana fans wanted it to.
Not an auspicious debut.
Not so much.
No, so Kevin Wilson's first one, they fall 27-20 to Ball State, MAC team that's also bringing in a new head coach in Pete Lembo, and didn't look so good out there in so many ways. Andy, start just basically what went wrong here today.
Well, defensively, there were many problems that were manifest, not the least of which was really just kind of getting whipped up front. The front seven for Indiana, whether actually a lot of times they played a 3-3-5, but what I would call the front seven never got any pressure on the opposing quarterback whatsoever. He played with impunity all day, and that just can't happen if you expect to be in anybody. But Wenning was basically able to operate unscathed all night. I mean, I think the only time he got touched by Indiana defenders was at the end of runs. I mean, he ran 8 times for 61 yards, and they eventually would tackle him. But in terms of pass rush, there wasn't any. And there wasn't much last year either, and most of that came from Darius Johnson, the senior defensive end,
who was not
whose
here.
absence was unexplained. He apparently didn't make the trip. But that certainly was an issue. Offensively,
let's address that real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, Kevin Wilson was asked why Darius Johnson was not at the game where the situation was. He said he did not travel, and we were asked why. He said, I don't comment on injuries or team rules or stuff like that. And I asked, okay, so was it an injury or was it something else? And he said, I don't comment on injuries or team rules. So anytime he's ever been asked about injuries before, he hasn't been specific, but he's usually at least said, well, he's been bumped up or nicked up or whatever. So that leads one to believe that it was not, in fact, an injury. Now, we don't know that because he didn't say that, but I would think that you would bring that up if there wasn't anything to it. So I don't know. But one way or another, left pretty mysterious, as Wilson tends to do when it comes to reasons guys aren't there.
Well, and there was another thing defensively. Jeff Thomas, the senior linebacker, said something along the lines of, credit Ball State, they whipped us up front. Yes, it's obviously disappointing. But when asked specifically about not being able to get pressure on the quarterback, he said, well, I'm not sure we showed everything that we have.
Which I totally didn't understand that comment at all.
Well, if they didn't, I'm saying, I'm not sure why.
What are you saving for?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you've got a really deflating defeat here that is unfolding in front of your eyes.
It causes you a lot of momentum and a new hire.
It's killing all your all your preseason buzz. And so I would think one would try anything and everything at that point.
Right. Ryan, we got to get you involved here someplace, man. What did you think? This is the first time you've watched. You're used to Michigan. You've seen wins.
Seen an awful lot of Michigan. Not so much wins.
Not as many perhaps as other classes before you. Just what did you think? I guess what kind of stood out to you is just what went wrong here today.
Well, I know Andy talked a lot about the defense, but offensively, I thought the team looked pretty good in the first half, but it seemed like the run game was abandoned in the second half, which I wasn't sure why that happened exactly.
True.
I mean, Houston and Perez had a pretty good first half. Each of them had 8 carries for 37 yards, I think it was.
But I think they were both averaging like 4.7.
Yeah, it's like 4 or 5 yards per carry. So I don't know why they only got 5 carries combined in the second half.
Yeah,
kind of looked like Wilson was reeling a little bit, and that kind of led to Wright Baker reeling, which we're not totally sure yet if he can handle the complete load of the offense. I mean, he needs a run game to kind of go along with his passing. So, clearly that kind of hurt him in the second half.
And time of possession didn't help either. I mean, they didn't have a lot of plays in the second half. I'm not exactly sure how many they ran, but they didn't have the ball very much. Ball State, I think, had one drive. The drive that led to the field goal that put them up by 10 points was like an 80. It was like 80 yards, 15 plays, like 7.5 minutes. So
and there was a lot of that, and especially, I mean, Indiana's down a touchdown, has to get the ball back, and Ball State, a Mid-American Conference team that was expected to be only fair to middling in the MAC this year, runs it right down their throat, right down the field, in a position where Indiana has to get a stop, has to get the ball back. If Ball State is able to go down and score, it's a two-score game, and with not much time left. And if you're an IU fan, that was probably the most deflating part of a deflating night, I think.
If you took the uniforms off, you would have thought Indiana was the MAC team.
Yeah,
plain and simple, because there was a major difference just at the line. Ball State clearly had the advantage. They were clearly able to run the ball when they wanted to, able to keep guys off, just completely destroy anything that even resembled a pass rush. And Indiana didn't run the ball very well late. I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, it wasn't as bad, but defensively, clearly Indiana could get nothing going at all in terms of getting
when you
past those
run
guys.
The ball that effectively, when Ball State runs the ball that effectively in the fourth quarter, I think the time of possession for Ball State was for Indiana was something like 3:08 in the fourth quarter. And when you have 3 minutes in the fourth quarter to maybe mount a comeback towards the end, it's just not going to happen, especially with the young offense.
And that's especially disappointing with all the rhetoric and all the talk during the preseason and during the offseason about the conditioning and
how
clearly
much tougher they were,
how much stronger, but mostly in terms of the loss of body fat, the better conditioning, and certainly once again you can look at their bodies and see that there was improvement made.
It does,
but nevertheless, it didn't really tell in this game tonight.
It does beg the question, and it's always tough to, to answer something like this. But did they lose too much weight?
I don't know.
Like, I mean, when it comes to an offensive line, I mean, do you really want marathon runners?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I know the answer to that question. I'm not saying this is definitively true, or we've, learned that was clearly the case, that these guys aren't eating enough or they're running too much or whatever. But it was clear that they were the smaller guys. Well, I mean, it must have been made about the fact that there's only one 300-pounder left, and that's, sometimes people don't always look at that as a good thing.
True. I mean, Hager told me he actually added a little weight, but most of the guys lost. But most of the guys were saying that was helping their explosion off the ball. That would be conducive to a better running game. And this is just one game. I mean, you can't really, make definitive judgments about any particular element of their play, other than to say it sure as heck wasn't good enough tonight, especially on defense, especially at the line of scrimmage. It wasn't as if the offense was ineffectual all night. They scored on, was it like 3 of the first 4 possessions or something of that nature? The first drive was as advertised, incredibly fast paced, very tough for those of us even in the press box trying to do play-by-play to keep up with it.
It was killing me.
And so, certainly there's something to be said for that. And so we'll see what happens. But it's when one is looking at Big Ten play, or even an ACC team coming in next week in Virginia. I think a lot of Big Ten or a lot of IU fans were hoping that this might be a team able to at least be competitive in the Big Ten trenches, and that was not true tonight.
It didn't give you reason to believe that when you imagine this against Wisconsin.
Yeah, well,
I mean, how hard is that going to be to get a pass rush against those guys?
Once you saw that tempo slow down, I mean, on either side, the teams just. Indiana just looked overmatched.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, very much so.
And once again, I mean, part of the rhetoric said that the defensive tackles, for example, were going to be a real strength of this team, with 4 experienced juniors able to rotate in there and stay fresh and whatnot. And yet, I didn't see them winning the war tonight.
No, not at all. Real quick, want to address the field goal thing, and we don't have a lot of time to do it. But beginning of the fourth, it was like 4th and 3 at the 9. Indiana had a chance to kick a field goal, bring it within 4, instead decided to go for it. Ed Wright Baker, missed on a pass to Dre Muhammad. He looked back, he said he wished he would have thrown a fade to DeMarlo. I guess Wilson said he thought that he kind of got bluffed.
It might have been a misread.
Yeah. And Wilson was asked, why did you even make the call in the first place? What made you decide to even go for it? He said, he talked to his defensive guys. He said he felt like we had him pinned down. They had a chance to get a stop. They could stop him if they didn't get it, and they did stop
against
him,
all
evidence.
Actually,
they did actually stop him. They
not
did
till
get him to punt.
midfield. They didn't print him down.
But at the end of the day, they end up losing some field position, cost them an opportunity to get some points. They end up going down 10, end up kicking the field goal to make it a 1-score game instead of had they got that field goal, they maybe can go for a touchdown and try to tie it.
That was your game changer.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was important. I mean, by the time you get look, games can unfold any which way given a variance in the score, and then strategy changes at the end of the game depending on the score. However,
it makes a difference.
Once you get to the fourth quarter, that was the first play of the fourth quarter. I think unless you have a play that is golden, that is going to work, that you have a very high chance of success, then basically you got to get the points there. You got to kick the field goal. I mean, and it's not. He said he consulted the defensive coach. It's not a defensive call.
No.
It's a head coach's call. It's an offensive call.
We're looking at 10 minutes, so we got to get a roll on, but not the best start.
Nope.
Not at all.
Only the
Not
first
the best
Saturday of 11 more,
Yeah.
and then or of 12, and we'll see 11 more.
Could be rough. Thanks.